So at this time, it is 5:30, and we are now scheduled to have a public hearing. Item number 19, clerk, please read.
This is the date set for a public hearing by the City Council regarding amendments to Chapters 13.05 and 13.06 of the Municipal Code relating to land use permit procedures and zoning to establish a permitting process and development standards for temporary homeless camps within the City of Tacoma that are run by religious organizations.
Okay, this time I'd like to call on Mr. John Harrington, who's going to do a presentation, and then I'll call on those who've signed in to testify.
Good evening, Mayor Strickland, members of the council. I'm John Harrington from the Planning and Development Services Department, here to give you your presentation. First slide covers the background of the proposal, and state law does authorize religious organizations to host temporary homeless camps, and it also provides that cities may impose conditions that protect the public health and safety in doing so. The recommendation that is put forth by the Planning Commission that you're to consider was based upon substantial public outreach. We did, as staff and members of other staff from the city, visited 3 different camps, 2 in King County and 1 in the Olympia area. And we also made presentations to numerous committees and community groups. Along with the actual Planning Commission recommendation for the amendments, there's also a fee application fee that was also developed for your consideration. Okay, the main tenets of the proposal is it will create a new permit process. It'll be called a temporary homeless camp permit. It'll be in section 1306-635 of our temporary uses section of our zoning code. There'll be a 14-day public notice provided out to a 400-foot radius. There'll also be cross-departmental review of the site and operations plan, and there will also be inspections done by the fire department and the health department and the planning department to start out. This will be a planning director decision, and that includes in that review of his, he does have the discretion to look at the specific proposal and ability to condition the proposal and modify the basic standards that are in the code. Occupants for the camp is limited to a maximum of 100 residents, be adults only. There'll be a warrant and background check for each of the prospective residents. There'll be a minimum camp area specified for each one. For siting of the camps, there'll be 2 camps as a maximum in the city of in Tacoma. The maximum camp duration is 93 days with a 2-year minimum to return to the same site. If the site is hard surfaced or is in a non-residential area, the maximum duration is 123 days with an 18-month minimum to return to the site. There will also be a one-time emergency extension of 40 days. That's to take care of any problems there may be in transitioning to a new site. And the sites must be located within 1/4 mile of transit stops. Health and safety requirements in the recommendation are to provide for showers and toilets, hand washing stations, garbage pickup, recycling, water, and power. There's also some safety requirements for fencing, setbacks, shelter and tent separation, security, and communications on site. So we will be bringing this back to the Neighborhood and Housing Committee next week for review, and then after that we plan to have first reading on the 15th and final reading on the 22nd.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Harrington at this time about this? And I think one of the things that I want to I'm going to call on the chair of the Neighborhoods and Housing Committee, but also understanding that by state law, cities are not allowed to say that they don't want these facilities in their city. So what we're trying to do is be very proactive and very thoughtful and very compassionate and really put parameters around how we would want this to work if this came into our city.
That is correct.
Okay, Councilmember Walker.
And thank you, Mayor, for bringing that up. That was the one thing that I wanted to highlight. But also, John, you talked about substantial public outreach and substantial work with the committee. This came through the Neighborhoods and Housing Committee. I think we've had 3 presentations. Yes. I wish I had it here, but we had a chart that was very helpful to find out what other cities in the state of Washington were doing, to just look specifically at their code. They visited tent cities in different areas. It was very helpful, and I just appreciate the work that you have done to educate all of us on how we can do this well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other council questions at this time or comments? Okay, we will go ahead and take comments from the public. So I will first call on Pastor Brown, followed by Alan OldStudent and Neal Rogers.
That must be Bruce.
Yes, that's what it says. I saw the B and the R, so I got as far as I could.
I didn't have my glasses on.
That's all right.
Sorry.
Pastor Bruce, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. I was for it for a long time, and then I work on the streets for 6 years with the homeless in the streets and the encampment areas. Never been to a tent city, but what I find out more on the streets, now this is just what I see, and this is from the homeless people I talk to. I did a survey for the last 3 weeks. The majority of them are really, the homeless people are nervous for the good and bad, the good and bad, and with all the drugs from smoking coffee to all the other meth and the heroin, it's like they're mainly concerned. They don't want it. They're afraid they're going to put a strain on the police department of Tacoma. You know, they're so busy right now, and that's what they're concerned about, the homeless people, which is kind of weird, but that's what they said. And so this is, I'm talking from the homeless community right now in the tents in the cities that they're afraid of it. They just said it. They hope it works, but according, as of today at 1 o'clock, they said that, you know, they don't want it. They just rather be in the woods or be at the rescue mission or the nativity house, even though they want a place to stay. They hope it would work, and I hope it works too, but this is what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, what I see. So there it is.
Thank you for providing that feedback.
You're welcome.
Okay, Alan OldStudent, followed by Neal Rogers.
Before I begin my remarks, I want to thank Harry, and Colin, and all the other people from the city who have been working so hard to make this reality. We don't always agree with what should be done, but I trust their instincts and their desires to be proactive on this completely. I was a little unprepared for the good Reverend's remarks. I talk to homeless people a lot too, and they like the idea of a tent city because, first of all, there won't be drugs. The thing will be governed by the homeless themselves. There'll be an executive committee. That executive committee will be elected. If you come into it and you look like you're high, or if you're holding or you have alcohol, you will be asked to leave. If there is an enforcement problem, the authorities will be called. This is something that gives people the dignity and the capability of governing their own lives, which is one thing that homeless people have a lot of difficulty with. And I mentioned this the last time I was here, but just imagine you didn't have a place to stay. Just imagine it's cold outside. Maybe it's kind of raining. You don't have a place to take care of your sanitary needs. You got to spend maybe an hour looking for a place to take care of your sanitary needs. You're trying to get a job. They want to know where, they want an address. And it's very difficult to get a job, although a lot of homeless people already do have jobs. I agree, homeless people are concerned about things like drugs and alcohol and addiction problems and that type of thing. This is an opportunity to have a safe place run by the people themselves. It's a place where if you get a job it starts at 3 in the afternoon, you can go to work and come back at 12 and the doors are not locked like they are in the regular facilities. So it is a transitional thing. It's a way that homeless can reintegrate themselves back into society. It is so important. And the thing that motivates me to be involved in it is I'm so grateful that I have a house and an income. Thank you.
Thank you. Neal Rogers.
Thank you very much. I'm here to testify in favor of the idea of the amendments that are being presented with a few revisions. First of all, the references to a sponsoring religious organization are moot. The organization that is trying to get this started is a non-religious, non-political organization that is specifically geared to prevent overt regulation by religious authorities or political authorities. We're trying to empower these people. We're trying to get them back into society with the hope that they will not become agoraphobic like so many people have that have been thrust into programs like Housing First. We are hoping that by putting this in place, it will give them a step that is not going to have them going into culture shock when they find themselves in a home suddenly. Yes, many of the concerns do surround drugs and alcohol. I'm not going to lie about that. That's why there are specific rules in place that say no drugs, no alcohol. If you are high, if you are drunk, kick rocks. You're done. You're not coming into my camp. It's the way I handled camping when I was homeless. It's the way my friends handled it. If we saw people that were drunk or high, we ran them out. Or we left ourselves and made sure that they did not follow us, so that we would not have to deal with the problems associated with them getting rowdy, loud, and stupid, and bringing the cops down on us. I also wanted to say that many of these regulations require things that make the permit process prohibitive as far as expense-wise. At least the last numbers that I got was $4,600 for this permit. That's as much as it costs to run Tent City for a month. And of course, one of my final comments is regarding the detail of the proposed number of residents being part of the application process. I really honestly feel that that should not be part of the application process. I feel that that should be determined by the city at the time they issue the permit.
Thank you. If you have more comments, you can submit them in written form to the clerk. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. All right, is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak for tonight's public hearing about this particular issue? Please come forward and state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Valentine Smith. I'm actually a member of the Central Neighborhood Committee. We didn't get a chance because of when this came out, we had already had our meeting, to come out with any sort of an official position. But mostly I just wanted to express that as a committee, we have some serious concerns with what's being proposed. And I've spoken to a number of my neighbors personally, and we have sort of a lot of concerns about this, not the least of which is, you know, everybody came up here before me and said, oh, we're going to have all these things in place, and we're not going to allow drugs, and we're not going to allow alcohol, and that's great, and it's a wonderful plan. But I think we all know from looking at Nicholsville and some of the other camps we've had in the area, there is drugs, there is crime, there is alcohol. So even the best efforts to sort of police themselves have proven to not work. And another concern that we have is we don't want Tacoma to look like it's a haven for this sort of activity. We have a homeless problem. We have a lot of great services that are trying their best to help them. The Phoenix House, we have the MDC Housing for Homeless, we have the Tacoma Ave Shelter. We're trying. And we don't want the message to look like we want these camps here in this city, because we don't have any right now. Because one of the things we're concerned about is if we establish a homeless camp and it stays there for the allotted amount of time, we end up just sort of consolidating these people and moving them from place to place to place as the time limit runs out. And most of us really don't see how that helps anybody. It doesn't help get anybody off the streets. It just sort of shuffles them around the city from one religious, place to another. And we don't understand how that really helps anybody. Another concern that was expressed by some members of the Central Neighborhood Committee was with the 10-foot buffer and with the 7,500 square feet per 50 people, but that can be sort of whittled down if they're using the church dining hall or the church kitchen. So realistically, you could have 50 people living in a pretty small area if they're actually using church facilities smack dab in the middle of a residential community. And if we're reading this correctly, the buffer is only 10 feet from people's yards. And so we have some concerns as far as that. And thank you. That is all I have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Smith. All right, is there anyone else in the audience wishing to come forward to speak about this particular issue? Anyone else wish to come forward tonight? Okay, I will declare the public hearing closed at this time, and we'll back to our regular agenda.